You know that feeling when you're lost and you need help, but you have no idea where to even start looking? Well, there's this huge network of support agencies out there, and think of this explainer as your map. We're going to dive right in. It's a huge question, right? In a real crisis, where do you actually turn? I mean, when things get tough for you personally or for your whole community, who do you call? It can feel overwhelming, but knowing the answer is so important. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
So the key here is a scale. Let's call it navigating support systems. Honestly, it's kind of like learning to use a super powerful search engine, but for help. And our goal today is to show you exactly how to use it, so you can find what you need right when you need it the most.
And that massive, confusing system? Well, it's actually not as complicated as it looks. It's really built on three main pillars. Once you get these, the whole thing starts to make a lot more sense.
Okay, so here they are. First, you've got governmental agencies. Second, non-governmental organizations. You probably know them as NGOs. And third, community-based organizations. Let's walk through each one and really start filling in the details on our map. All right, let's tackle that first pillar, governmental agencies. Think of these as the backbone of the whole system. They're the big foundational players, right? They're set up by law, funded by our tax dollars, and they really form the core of the social safety net.
And you can really see their massive reach right here. In the US, for example, you've got HHS, that's Health and Human Services, handling things like Head Start and elder care. Then there's the SSA for financial stuff like retirement and disability, and HUD for housing needs. For food assistance, you've got the USDA, and when a disaster strikes, well, that's when FEMA steps in. These are truly the giants of the support world.
Okay, but what happens when the need is something the government can't quite cover? Or maybe it requires a really specific kind of expertise. Well, that's where our second pillar comes into play, non-governmental organizations. These are groups funded by donations and grants, and they often work on a huge scale, sometimes nationally, sometimes even globally. And when we talk about global reach, you got to talk about the United Nations agencies. These guys are absolute heavyweights. You've got UNICEF, which focuses entirely on helping children all over the world. There's the UNHCR, which is there to protect refugees. And the World Food Program, which steps in with emergency food during huge international crises. I mean, their scale is just incredible.
And it's not just the UN. This really shows you how diverse NGOs can be. You've got groups like Doctors Without Borders, who are right there on the front lines providing emergency medical care. Then you have Save the Children, focusing specifically on kids' rights, and organizations like Oxfam, who are trying to tackle the big picture issues like poverty and inequality. Each one has its own laser-focused mission.
Okay, so we've talked about the big national and global players, but let's bring it back home. What about help right in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard? That brings us to our third and final pillar, community organizations. These are the real grassroots groups, you know? They're like the last mile delivery system, providing that direct, hands-on support right where people live.
And I bet you recognize a lot of these names. We're talking about local food banks, shelters run by groups like the Salvation Army, Meals on Wheels making sure seniors get a hot meal, or the Boys and Girls Clubs, giving kids a safe place to go. These are the familiar faces in our communities, the ones offering that tangible, hands-on help day in and day out.
All right, so now we have our map. We get the three pillars, governmental, NGOs, and community orgs. We see how they fit together. But now comes the most important part. How do we actually use this map? How do you pinpoint the right help for the right problem at the right time?
Well, the very first step is just matching the scale of the problem to the scale of the organization. Think about it. If there's a huge international crisis, yeah, you're looking at the UN and the big international NGOs. But if you, personally, need help with a utility bill or you need to find the closest food pantry, you're not going to call the United Nations, right? Of course not. You're going to connect with your state's social services or a local community group.
So where do you even start? That's the key question. In the US, a great first step is just dialing 211. It's a simple number that can connect you to a whole web of local help. Online portals like USA.gov are also treasure troves of info. And here's a really important thing to remember. These agencies don't operate in silos. They often collaborate. A government agency might give a grant to an NGO, which then funds a local community center you use. So making just one connection can open up a whole network of resources.
And, this is the why behind all of this. It's about so much more than just finding a number to call in a crisis. The real goal here, as our source material puts it so well, is about empowering people. It's about giving them the knowledge to connect with the right support, which helps build not just self-sufficiency, but stronger, more resilient communities for all of us. This map, it's really a tool for empowerment.
So we've laid out the map. We can see the landscape. But here's the thing. A map is totally useless if people can't get their hands on it, or worse, if they don't even know it exists. So that leaves us with a really important question to think about. How do we make sure this map, this vital information, actually gets to every single person who needs it? And maybe, what's our role in helping share it?